A ruthless billionaire thought he had mastered every storm until a little girl asked one question in the middle of a blizzard. As markets crashed and power slipped away, he had seconds to choose protect his empire or become the man he was never given. The choice shattered everything. Snow fell over Manhattan like a quiet apology, soft, persistent, impossible to ignore. Grayson Vale stepped out of the black town car, his polished leather shoes touching the marble entrance of Evergreen Crest Senior Resort. Inside, everything gleamed. Glass walls, soft gold lighting, silence expensive enough to cost a fortune. This place was designed for endings. He adjusted his charcoal wool coat, the kind tailored to fit a man who never bent. At 47, Grayson was known for precision timing markets, cutting losses, walking away before emotions complicated outcomes. His visits here followed the same rule once a month, 20 minutes, no surprises. The air smelled of lavender and disinfectant. Clean, controlled, like his childhood. As he walked through the corridor, snow pressed itself against the floor-to-ceiling windows, desperate to be let in. Grayson didn't look at it. He never did. Feelings like weather were distractions. His father's room was on the 5th floor. Always the 5th floor. The elevator doors reflected his face back at him, sharp jaw, calm eyes, no cracks visible. The son his father had wanted. Successful, independent, untouchable. A memory surfaced unwanted. Affection makes men weak, his father had once said. Grayson had believed him. The elevator chimed softly. He stepped forward, then stopped. A sound broke the silence. Small, curious. "Are you visiting Grandpa too?" Grayson turned. A little girl stood behind him, no more than 8. Snow clung to the hem of her red coat. A knitted hat slipped sideways on her head. Her backpack was covered in faded stickers, stars, animals, a crooked heart. Her eyes were bright, unafraid. For a moment, the corridor felt warmer. Grayson blinked, unsettled by the sudden shift in temperature. He began. But the girl was already smiling as if the answer didn't matter. Grayson rarely hesitated in conversation. Deals closed because he spoke first. This time a child had beaten him to it. "My name's Winnie," the girl said, rocking gently on her heels. "Grandpa says it's short for Elowen, but that's too long for elevators." She glanced up at the glowing numbers above the doors. The elevator hadn't arrived yet. Grayson studied her the way he studied risk, carefully. She wasn't lost. Her coat was worn but clean. Her confidence suggested familiarity, not fear. "Your grandpa lives here?" Grayson asked. Winnie nodded enthusiastically. "5th floor, room 502. He pretends not to like visitors, but that's a lie." The number hit him like ice water. 502. Grayson's chest tightened, barely perceptible, like a hairline fracture in glass. "That's quite specific," he said. She grinned. "He saves the good cookies for me. Chocolate chip, from the cafe downstairs. Don't tell." The elevator doors opened. Before Grayson could respond, Winnie stepped inside and pressed 5 with the authority of someone who had done it 100 times. "Are you coming?" she asked, genuinely puzzled, when he didn't move right away. Grayson stepped in. The doors slid shut, sealing them together in a quiet box of ascending fate. "I come here after school," Winnie continued. "Mom works late sometimes. Grandpa listens when I talk. Even when I talk a lot." She tilted her head, studying him. "You look like someone who doesn't get listened to." The elevator hummed. Grayson said nothing. No one had ever accused him of that before. As the numbers climbed, a strange unease settled in his stomach. His father had never mentioned visitors, never mentioned a child, never mentioned family. The elevator slowed. Ding, 5th floor. Winnie bounced forward, reaching for his hand without thinking. "Come on," she said. "He's waiting." The hallway on the 5th floor was quieter. Softer lighting, thicker carpet, older air. Winnie walked ahead, confident, her boots leaving faint wet marks from melting snow. She stopped in front of a door and reached for the handle. 502. Grayson's heart skipped, not metaphorically, but physically. A misfire. A reminder that control was an illusion. "Winnie," he said sharply. "Wait." She paused, confused. Why? Because this was impossible. Because his father did not have grandchildren. Because nothing in Grayson Vale's life arrived unannounced. But the door opened anyway. Inside, Harlan Vale sat in a leather armchair by the window, newspaper folded neatly in his hands. Silver hair combed back. Cashmere sweater. The same controlled elegance Grayson had inherited. "Grandpa," Winnie cried. She ran forward and wrapped her arms around the old man. Harlan laughed. Not politely. Not thinly. He laughed the way men laugh when they are loved. "There's my girl," he said warmly, hugging her back. "Did you freeze out there?" Grayson stood frozen instead. He had never seen that smile. Never heard that tone. Harlan looked up, and the smile faltered. "Grayson," he said. Silence stretched. Snow drifted past the window, thick and relentless. Winnie looked between them, her brow wrinkling. "You know each other?" she asked. Grayson couldn't answer. Because in that moment, standing in his father's room, watching a little girl receive everything he had been denied, he understood something terrible. This wasn't a mistake. This was a secret. And secrets once uncovered never stay small. The knock on the door was soft, professional. A woman in navy scrubs stepped in, clipboard pressed to her chest. Her badge read, "Calla Reese, RN." She smiled automatically, the kind of smile practiced through years of quiet corridors and careful truths. "Mr. Kiaho Vale," she said to Harlan. "I just need a signature to update your approved visitors list." Grayson's attention snapped to the clipboard the way it did to contracts and balance sheets. Paper never lied. People did. Calla glanced at him. "Good morning, Mr. Vale. Would you like to be added as well? We're standardizing access lists this month." Grayson stepped closer instinctively. "Let me see that." Calla hesitated, then handed it over. Names, dates, relationships. Then it was there. Maris Rowan, daughter, visitation level equal. Grayson felt the room tilt. Daughter. The word echoed louder than the snowfall beyond the glass. His fingers tightened on the clipboard knuckles, whitening the paper, crinkling under pressure. "That's not possible," he said quietly. Calla looked confused. "I'm sorry, my father has one child," Grayson said. "Me." Silence spread like frost. Harlan shifted in his chair. The leather creaked, betraying him. "Grayson," he began, but Grayson was already reading further. There were notes. Years of dates. Repeated visits. A pattern. A life lived parallel to his own. Winnie tugged gently at Calla's sleeve. "I told you Grandpa has lots of visitors," she said proudly. Grayson lowered the clipboard. "Winnie," Harlan said, voice tight. "Sweetheart, why don't you go to the garden for a bit? The birds should be there." Winnie frowned. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," Harlan said too quickly. "Never." Reluctantly, Winnie followed Calla out, boots squeaking softly against the floor. The door closed. The silence that remained was heavy, intentional. Grayson placed the clipboard on the table with deliberate care. "Explain," he said. Grayson didn't raise his voice. That was the most dangerous thing about him. "How long?" he asked. Harlan removed his glasses, folded them once, then again, stalling. "Maris was born 3 years after you," he said at last. "Her mother and I were complicated." Grayson finished, bitter. "Everything is complicated when it's inconvenient." Harlan looked up sharply. "You don't understand." Grayson laughed, short and hollow. "I understand perfectly. While I was learning independence, you were learning how to be gentle." Harlan flinched. Grayson stepped toward the window, watching snow pile against the ledge. Every birthday card with a check instead of a call. Every holiday dinner that ended early because of business. Tell me, were you busy then too? You mother believed affection made boys weak, Harlan said softly. She wanted you strong. And Maris Grayson turned. Did she need to be strong too? Harlan's silence answered. Grayson felt something crack open in his chest, slow and deep. I spent my life chasing approval, he said. Turns out you were giving it away. Harlan's voice trembled. After your mother died, I realized how wrong we were. But by then, you were already distant, successful. I thought it was too late. So you tried again, Grayson said. With her. With her, Harlan admitted. And with Winnie. The name landed heavily. She calls you Grandpa, Grayson said. She holds your hand. She laughs with you. I failed you, Harlan said. Every day. Grayson closed his eyes. For a moment he saw himself at 8, waiting by a window that never opened. You didn't fail, Grayson said quietly. You chose. The door opened again unannounced. Calla returned, holding a photo album she'd found during cleaning. This fell behind the bookshelf, she said apologetically. It slipped from her hands and landed open on the table. Grayson saw it before anyone could stop him. Harlan younger, smiling. Standing in a school auditorium beside a dark-haired girl holding a diploma. Another page, a birthday cake, balloons, arms wrapped around shoulders, a life. Grayson picked up the album. His hands shook. She knows about me, he asked. Yes, Harlan said. She always has. She wanted to reach out. I stopped her. Why? Because I was afraid, Harlan said. Afraid you'd hate me. Afraid I'd lose you. Grayson looked up, eyes burning. You lost me anyway. Outside, Winnie laughed in the garden, her voice floating through the glass. Grayson stared at the child he'd met an hour ago and felt something impossible stirring beneath the ice. A pull. A responsibility. A fracture in the armor he'd spent decades perfecting. Where is she? He asked. Harlan swallowed. Brooklyn. Grayson nodded once. This conversation isn't over, he said. It's just beginning. Snow continued to fall, but for the first time in years, Grayson Vale felt something shift. Not warmth, not yet, but the first crack where warmth might enter. Brooklyn wore winter differently than Manhattan. The snow didn't glide here. It clung dirty at the edges, heavy on fire escapes, pressed into cracked sidewalks, like a burden no one bothered to clear. Maris Rowan watched it fall from the narrow kitchen window of her apartment, one hand wrapped around a mug she'd forgotten to drink from. Winnie was in the other room humming to herself as she colored. The sound was soft, safe. Maris should have felt the same. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Dad. He never called this early. Her fingers hesitated before answering. Is Winnie okay? There was a pause on the other end, too long. He knows, Harlan said. 2 words. That was all it took. Maris sank into the chair, the mug slipping from her hand and sloshing coffee onto the table. How she whispered. Winnie, he said. She met him in the hallway. Thought he was another visitor. Of course she did. Maris closed her eyes. For years she had imagined this moment, Grayson finding out. She'd rehearsed explanations in the dark. Apologies she didn't know if she owed words she might never get to say. But she hadn't imagined it like this. Not sudden, not exposed, not bleeding into real time. What did he say? Maris asked. He didn't, Harlan replied. Not yet. Maris pressed her forehead into her palm. Grayson Vale. The brother she'd known her whole life without ever speaking to. The man whose face she recognized from business magazines and charity galas. The man she had once watched from across a crowded room, heart-pounding, terrified of crossing an invisible line. I tried to reach him, she said quietly. I know, Harlan answered. I stopped you. Silence. Then softer, Maris. I think it's time. Maris looked toward the living room. Winnie glanced up at her, smiling, completely unaware of the storm breaking open her world. I'll come, Maris said. But if he looks at her like she doesn't belong, he won't, Harlan said, but there was no certainty in his voice. Maris ended the call and stood slowly. She knelt beside Winnie, brushing snow-damp curls from her daughter's face. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "how would you feel about visiting Grandpa again today?" Winnie's eyes lit up. "Do I get cookies?" Maris smiled even as her chest tightened. "Yes," she said, "you get cookies. And maybe finally the truth." Evergreen Crest looked colder in the afternoon light. Maris paused outside room 502, her hand hovering inches from the door. Inside, she could hear a man's voice, controlled, edged with something raw beneath. "Grayson. And every achievement he was saying, I thought it would finally be enough." Maris swallowed. She had heard versions of that sentence her entire life. She pushed the door open. Two men turned toward her, one old and brittle with regret, one tall, sharp-edged, standing like a wall built to keep the world out. Grayson's eyes locked onto hers. Recognition flickered, then hardened. "I've seen you before," he said slowly. "At the Thompson Foundation Gala. You were watching me." Maris nodded. "I didn't know how to approach you." "You had 35 years, Grayson said." The words cut clean. "Yes," Maris replied. "And every one of them I was told that my existence would hurt you." Grayson laughed, bitter. "Congratulations." It did. Winnie slipped past Maris and ran to Harlan's side, oblivious. "Grandpa, the birds are gone, but Mrs. Patterson says they'll come back." Maris watched Grayson's jaw tighten as Winnie spoke. He wasn't angry at the child. That made this worse. "You brought her here," Grayson said. "She's your niece," Maris answered. "She deserves to know her family." "Family," Grayson repeated. "That's a generous word." Maris stepped closer. "Do you think it was easy growing up knowing I had a brother who didn't know I existed, watching you succeed from the shadows, reading about you like you were fiction?" Grayson stared at her. "You read about me. I collected every article," she said. "Every win, every loss. When you lost that telecom deal in 2019, I couldn't sleep for days. The room felt suddenly too small." "That's not connection," Grayson said. "That's surveillance." "No," Maris said firmly. "That's love with nowhere to go." Silence fell between them, thick as snow piling on glass. Harlan cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should—" "No," Grayson snapped. "Let her speak." Maris held his gaze. "I didn't steal your father from you. I didn't choose secrecy. I lived inside it." Winnie tugged at Grayson's coat. "Mom says you're my uncle." Grayson looked down at her, and something in him shifted. Maris pulled a worn photo album from her bag and placed it on the table. "This is my life," she said. Unedited. Grayson flipped it open. Maris, at 12, sitting alone in a school auditorium. "Dad couldn't come," she said quietly. "You were receiving an award that night." Another page. "An empty chair at a college celebration. Cancelled. Same reason." Grayson's throat tightened. "You think I grew up wrapped in affection," Maris continued. "But every happy moment was measured. Limited. I learned to dim my joy so he wouldn't feel guilty about you." She turned the page. A newborn Winnie cradled in Maris's arms. The smile was radiant and exhausted. "Her father left when he found out," Maris said. "Said he wasn't ready." Grayson looked up sharply. "So you raised her alone?" "Yes." Outside, snow fell heavier. Winnie climbed into a chair beside Grayson, peering at the album. "That's me," she said proudly. "I was very small." Grayson nodded. "You were." "You look sad," Winnie added. He swallowed. "I am." She considered this, then leaned against his arm without asking permission. No one had done that to him in years. Maris watched carefully, barely breathing. Grayson closed the album. "All these years," he said slowly, "I thought I was alone." "You weren't," Maris replied. "You just didn't know where to look." The door cracked open. Calla peeked in. "Visiting hours, it's fine," Grayson said. He stood towering, but no longer distant. Winnie, he said, would you like to see something? Her eyes widened. What, my office, he said. One day. She smiled. Okay. Grayson looked at Maris. This doesn't fix anything. I know, she said. But he continued, it changes what comes next. Snow pressed harder against the window, and for the first time it didn't feel like a wall. Grayson's office sat 47 floors above the city, wrapped in glass and silence. Snow drifted past the windows in slow spirals, the kind that made Manhattan look almost gentle. Inside, everything was sharp steel edges, polished stone numbers glowing on screens. This was where Grayson Vale made decisions that moved markets. This was not where children belonged. The receptionist buzzed him. Mr. Vale, there's a young visitor here. She says her name is Winnie. Grayson froze. Before he could respond, the glass doors opened and Winnie burst in like a spark of color. Her red coat, half unzipped cheeks, pink from the cold. Maris followed more cautiously, apologetic tension in every step. I told her we should wait, Maris said quickly, but she insisted. Winnie craned her neck, eyes wide. Wow, Mom was right. You can see the whole world from here. Grayson stood slowly. What are you doing here? Winnie pulled an envelope from her backpack, smoothing it carefully on his desk. The paper was creased, decorated with uneven stars, and a snowman drawn in blue marker. This is for you, she said proudly. Grayson opened it. Dear Uncle Gray, you're invited to my school's career day this Thursday. Mom says you're very busy, but my teacher says important people make time. Please come. I want my class to know you. Love, Winnie. The words blurred for a moment. Grayson glanced at his calendar. Thursday morning was blocked in red, an acquisition meeting that would close a $1 billion deal. The kind of meeting men didn't miss. I understand if you can't, Maris said softly. I told her. What time? Grayson asked. Winnie's face lit up. 9, and Mom says you can come for breakfast first. I make pancakes. Grayson hesitated. Then he closed the calendar tab. Okay, he said. Maris stared at him. Grayson? I said okay. Winnie squealed and threw her arms around his waist before he could stop her. Grayson stiffened, then slowly, awkwardly rested a hand on her shoulder. Warm. Too warm. When they left, the office felt colder than before. Grayson stood alone, staring at the invitation. For the first time in decades, he let something more important than money onto his schedule. Maris's apartment smelled like coffee butter and something dangerously close to comfort. Snow piled on the windowsill as Winnie stood on a stool by the stove, concentrating fiercely on a pancake shaped vaguely like a dollar sign. Uncle Gray, she announced, this one is special. It's for business luck. Grayson removed his coat, uncertain where to put it. The kitchen was small, crowded with magnets, drawings, and photographs that had never been posed. He felt like a guest in a life that moved without him. Maris watched him from the counter. She insisted on cooking. Grayson nodded. She's determined. Winnie flipped the pancake. It landed crooked but intact. She cheered. Grayson surprised himself by smiling. They sat at a tiny table. Winnie poured syrup generously. Mom says you drink coffee like a serious person. Grayson took a sip. It was terrible. He drank it anyway. This place is warm, he said, meaning more than temperature. Maris followed his gaze to the photos. Winnie at the park. Winnie on her first school day. Winnie asleep on the couch with a book. She's everything, Maris said simply. Grayson swallowed. On the drive to school, Winnie talked nonstop about classmates, teachers, and Jimmy Parker, whose uncle owns a pizza place and thinks that's very impressive. Grayson listened, actually listened. Outside the school, parents stared. Whispers followed him down the hall. He ignored them. In the classroom, children sat cross-legged on a bright rug. Winnie's teacher smiled nervously. Class, we have a very special guest. Grayson stepped forward. He thought of his father missing his own school events, of empty chairs. He set his briefcase down. "Good morning," he said. "Who here has ever had a really good idea?" Hands shot up, including Winnie's. Grayson began to talk, not about money, but about ideas. Lemonade stands, trading cards, helping people grow something small into something better. The room leaned toward him, and for the first time Grayson felt like he belonged somewhere without having to earn it. After career day, Winnie didn't stop smiling. She held Grayson's hand in the hallway, introducing him to teachers like he was a prize. Grayson let her. Back at the office, drawings began to appear on his walls. Winnie's drawings. The following week, snow turned to ice. Maris's voice came through the phone, tight with fear. Grayson Winnie fell. "We're at the hospital. They need a guardian to sign forms, and I'm stuck in traffic. I'm on my way," Grayson said, already grabbing his coat. The hospital was chaos, beeping machines, rushed footsteps. Winnie lay in bed, arm-cradled, eyes red. She saw him and cried harder. "Uncle Gray," she sobbed. "I broke my trading arm." Grayson sat beside her. "That's a setback," he said gently. "But setbacks are part of growth." She sniffed. "Like business, exactly." He signed the forms without hesitation. Maris arrived, breathless relief flooding her face when she saw him there. "Thank you. I'm her uncle," he said. The words felt right. Later that night, as snow fell again, Grayson sat alone in his office. He looked at Winnie's drawing taped to the glass. A family, holding hands, snow outside, light inside. He realized something then. Success hadn't saved him. People had, and he was done being absent. The snow had stopped by the time Grayson returned to Evergreen Crest. That was what unsettled him most. No storm, no warning. Just quiet, thick, and expectant like the pause before a verdict. Harlan Vale sat near the window watching a pair of birds hop along the frozen hedges. He looked smaller than Grayson remembered. Not weaker, smaller, as if time had finally taken something back. "You came alone," Harlan said without turning. Grayson removed his coat slowly. "Maris is with Winnie." A pause. "Is she all right?" Harlan asked. "Yes," Grayson replied. "She broke her arm. She was scared." Harlan nodded, jaw tightening. "Children scare easily," no, Grayson said. "They remember who shows up." That landed. Harlan turned, then eyes sharp despite their age. "You were there." "I signed the forms," Grayson said. "I stayed." Something flickered across Harlan's face, relief followed by something darker. "You became what I wasn't," Harlan said quietly. Grayson stepped closer. "No, I became what I needed." Silence pressed in around them. Outside, ice cracked softly under the birds' feet. "I need to understand something," Grayson continued. "When she was in that hospital bed, she looked at me like I was solid, like I wouldn't disappear." Harlan lowered his gaze, and I realized, Grayson said, voice tightening, that I used to look at you the same way. The words hung between them, sharp as glass. Harlan closed his eyes. "I thought distance would make you strong." "It made me efficient," Grayson replied. "There's a difference." He moved to the window, mirroring his father without realizing it. Two men, same posture, separated by decades of silence. When Winnie fell, Grayson went on. "My first instinct wasn't money or control. It was presence." Harlan exhaled shakily. "Presence terrified me." Grayson turned, why Harlan's voice dropped. "Because my father taught me that love was leverage, that showing it meant losing authority." Grayson nodded slowly. "And I built an empire on that lesson." Harlan looked up, startled. "What I win by not needing anyone," Grayson said. "Or so I thought." He swallowed. But when Winnie cried, none of that mattered. The old man's hands trembled slightly on the armrests. "Do you hate me?" Grayson didn't answer immediately. "I hated the absence," he said at last. "I hated the silence. I hated believing I wasn't enough. Harlan's breath hitched, but now Grayson continued. I see the pattern, and I see myself repeating it. You don't have to, Harlan said urgently. I know, Grayson replied. That's why I'm here. He actually knelt, bringing himself level with his father. I'm not asking for apologies, Grayson said. I'm asking for truth, and for space to do this differently. Harlan reached out, hesitated, then placed his hand over Grayson's. I was proud of you, he whispered. I just didn't know how to say it without losing you. Grayson closed his eyes. I lost you anyway, he said gently. But we don't have to lose her. They both knew who her was. Outside, the birds took flight. Grayson stood. This is where it changes, he said, for all of us. Harlan nodded, tears finally slipping free. Then go, he said. Be there. Grayson picked up his coat. This time he didn't feel like he was leaving. The snow returned that night heavier than before. Brooklyn disappeared under it. Sirens' muffled streetlights blurred into pale halos, the city reduced to breath and shadow. Inside Maris's apartment, warmth fought the cold with uneven success. The radiator clicked like a nervous metronome. Maris sat at the kitchen table, laptop, open hands, motionless, on either side of the keyboard. The email glowed. Subject: London contract, final offer. She had read it 5 times already. She read it again. A year-long consulting role, global exposure, financial security she'd never had, a chance to stop calculating groceries in her head, a chance to give Winnie more than survival, a chance to leave. Winnie padded in from the bedroom, her cast wrapped in blue, scribbled with stars. Mom, she said softly, are you working again? Maris closed the laptop halfway. Just reading. Winnie climbed onto the chair across from her, studying her face the way children do when they sense truth before words catch up. You look like when the snow gets too loud, she said. Maris smiled faintly. Snow doesn't get loud. Yes, it does, Winnie insisted. When it makes everything quiet. Maris reached across the table and took her daughter's uninjured hand. How would you feel about going on a big adventure? Winnie's eyes widened. Like, far, very far. Is there snow? Winnie asked immediately. Yes. Then okay. She paused. But will Uncle Gray come? There it was. The question Maris had been avoiding all evening. I don't know, she said honestly. Winnie nodded, absorbing it. He said he would teach me about business setbacks. This feels like one. Maris laughed, despite herself, then felt tears press behind her eyes. You're very wise, I learned from watching, Winnie said simply. Later, when Winnie slept, Maris reopened the laptop. She stared at the offer until the words lost meaning. Her phone buzzed. Grayson. She hesitated, then answered. Are you sitting down? He asked. Yes. Good. I heard. Maris closed her eyes. Dad told you. He mentioned a possibility, Grayson said. London. Silence stretched between them, filled by the hiss of falling snow. I don't want to leave, Maris said quietly, but I can't pretend this doesn't change things. I know, Grayson replied. It's a good offer. It's a life, she said. One I didn't plan on rebuilding again. Grayson leaned against the glass wall of his office, watching the city below blur into white. For the first time in his career, the height made him uneasy. Winnie asked if I'd still come. Maris added. Grayson closed his eyes. The board meeting agenda sat open on his desk. Expansion plans. Europe. London circled in red like a challenge thrown by fate itself. What did you tell her? He asked. The truth, Maris said. That I don't know. Grayson exhaled. I'm tired of not knowing. The next morning, the boardroom was ablaze. Snow streaked past the windows as men and women in tailored suits dissected projections and timelines. When Grayson mentioned London, heads nodded until he explained the terms. A rotating leadership model, he said. 2 weeks London, 2 weeks New York. remote oversight filling the gaps. Silence. That's inefficient, someone said. That's emotional, another added. Grayson didn't flinch. It's sustainable. A senior partner leaned forward. You don't reorganize an empire for personal reasons. Grayson met his gaze. I do. Murmurs rippled. We'll lose momentum, someone warned. We'll lose people, another said. Grayson straightened. We've already lost what matters. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. That evening, he stood outside Maris's apartment, snow crusting his coat. He knocked. Maris opened the door, startled. Can we talk? He asked. They sat at the small table again. The same chairs, the same radiator clicking. I'm not asking you to stay, Grayson said. I'm asking you not to disappear. Maris studied him. That's a new sentence for you. I'm new, he said. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were preliminary plans, office locations, travel schedules, child-friendly accommodations, school calendars penciled into margins. I can be there, Grayson said. Not occasionally, consistently. Maris's throat tightened. You don't owe us this. I owe myself the chance to do it right, he replied. Winnie shuffled in half asleep. Is it snowing inside? She mumbled. Grayson knelt eye level. Only a little. Are we moving? She asked. Maris inhaled. We might. Winnie looked between them, then smiled. Okay, but Uncle Gray has to come too, or it doesn't count. Grayson nodded. Deal. Winnie yawned. Good. I hate half deals. When she went back to bed, Maris finally let the tears fall. You're changing everything, she whispered. Grayson looked out the window where snow erased the street below. So did you. Outside, the city surrendered to winter. Inside, a family chose to stay visible to one another. The fallout arrived before the ink dried. Grayson's decision rippled through the firm like a fracture line under ice, quiet at first, then unmistakable. Calls went unanswered. Meetings shortened, smiles thinned. By noon, the first partner asked to revisit priorities. By dusk, a major client postponed pending leadership clarity. Clarity. That word again. Grayson stood alone in the boardroom's snow, dragging its white nails down the windows. The city looked smaller from here, as if winter had shrunk it. He remembered how this room used to steady him, numbers in clean rows, outcomes mapped before emotions could interfere. Not today. Nora, his assistant, entered with careful steps. Two partners want time tomorrow. Separately. Because together would look like a mutiny, Grayson said. She hesitated. They're worried. So am I, he replied. That's the difference. When the room emptied, Grayson stayed. He let the silence speak. It told him what he already knew: choosing people over power doesn't feel heroic when the bill arrives. That night, he drove without a destination. Snow blurred the streets into a tunnel of light. His phone buzzed. Maris. You don't have to do this, she said before he could speak. We'll make it work. We always do. I know, Grayson replied. That's why I am. He parked outside her building but didn't go in. He watched the windows glow one by one like promises people kept simply by being home. I lost a client today, he said. I'm sorry, Maris said. I didn't mean to. You didn't, he interrupted. I did. A pause. Are you scared? She asked. Grayson smiled at the honesty of it. Yes. He hadn't said that out loud in years. The next morning, the partners arrived. One praised loyalty, another warned of optics. A third asked flatly if Grayson was prepared to step aside for the good of the firm. Grayson listened. When they finished, he folded his hands. I built this company on resilience, he said. Not on convenience. If that's a liability now, I accept the cost. Silence answered him. Outside, snow fell harder, as if punctuating the moment. By evening, the firm stood wounded but standing. Two partners resigned. One stayed. Markets shrugged. Life continued. Grayson walked out into the cold and felt lighter than he had in months. Some things broke. Some things stayed. And for the first time, he didn't measure the outcome in dollars. The move came with a storm. Flights canceled. Roads iced. London waited behind a wall of weather patient and indifferent. Grayson stood at the airport watching departure boards flicker from green to red. Maris held Winnie close, her cast bright against the gray. "We can wait," she said. "We don't have to push." Grayson shook his head. "We go when it's hardest. Otherwise, we never go." Winnie peered through the glass at planes wrapped in frost. "Is this a business delay?" "Yes," Grayson said. "And a life won." They took the last flight out to turbulence, clawing at the cabin like a question that wouldn't be ignored. Winnie slept cheek against Grayson's shoulder, breathing slow and sure. He stayed awake, counting breaths, memorizing weight. In London, winter met them quietly, snow fine as ash streets hushed. The townhouse was smaller than Grayson's New York penthouse, warmer than anything he remembered growing up. Winnie ran room to room, assigning functions with solemn authority. "This is my office," she declared, pointing at a sunlit corner. "But Mom says it's my bedroom. We're negotiating." Grayson laughed. He hadn't known laughter could echo in a house like this. That night, his phone rang. "Harlan." "I heard you left," his father said. "We arrived," Grayson corrected. A pause. "I'd like to come." Grayson closed his eyes. "It's not easy." "It should be," Harlan said. "I owe her time." Grayson pictured the old man in his quiet room, birds gone winter pressing in. "We'll make space," he said. The next days blurred into boxes and meetings and school forms. Winnie's new classroom smelled of crayons and wet coats. Children stared at her accent, her cast, her certainty. "They say lift instead of elevator," Winnie reported. "I'm collecting differences," Good Grayson said. "Data helps." At night, when the house slept, Grayson worked. Not the old way, no grandstanding, no bravado. He built systems that breathed. He learned to leave meetings early. He learned to come back. Snow gathered on the windowsills like a ledger marking time. This crossing wasn't just across an ocean. It was across a line he'd sworn never to cross. The hospital called at noon. Maris was stuck on the tube stalled between stations. Winnie had slipped on the playground ice, nothing catastrophic, they said, but forms needed signing. A guardian. Now. Grayson didn't hesitate. He ran. The corridor smelled like antiseptic and winter coats. Winnie sat upright, brave, until she saw him. Then the fear rushed back like a tide. "Uncle Gray," she whispered. "I tried to be careful." "I know," he said, sitting beside her. "Careful people still fall." She sniffed. "Is this another setback?" "Yes," he said, "and we already know what to do." He signed the forms. He held her hand. He told a story about a man who learned to write with his left hand after a fall and found a new way to sign his name. When Maris arrived, breathless relief broke across her face. "Thank you." "I'm here," Grayson said. Later at home, Winnie slept early. Grayson and Maris sat at the small kitchen table, steam rising from mugs. "She trusts you," Maris said quietly. "That's not small." Grayson stared at the table's worn edge. "I'm afraid of failing her." Maris met his eyes. "Then don't disappear." That night, Grayson drafted documents. Guardianship contingencies, education trusts, not as insurance, but as intention. He paused before sending them, then did. Snow fell again, softening the city. Across the ocean, Harlan packed a single suitcase. The storm was building not outside, but ahead. The snow was falling sideways when Harlan Vale arrived in London. Not the gentle kind. This snow-cut, sharp flakes stung the face, erased lines, forced everything to slow. Grayson waited under the awning of the townhouse, collar up, hands buried deep in his coat pockets, watching the taxi pull to the curb. His father stepped out carefully. Smaller than before. Thinner. Wrapped in a dark wool coat that looked borrowed from another life. Grayson moved forward instinctively, then stopped himself. Harlan looked up. Their eyes met. For a second, neither spoke. "I didn't expect it to be this cold," Harlan said finally. Grayson nodded. "London doesn't soften for anyone." Maris appeared in the doorway, hesitating, then stepping forward. "You must be tired," she said, polite but guarded. Harlan smiled, unsure. "I am, but grateful." Inside, warmth rushed to meet them, radiators humming, lamps glowing, the smell of soup simmering. Winnie peeked from behind the staircase, her cast newly covered in drawings. "Grandpa," she asked. Harlan's face transformed. Not dramatically, quietly, like ice melting without sound. "There you are," he said. Winnie ran to him, careful of her arm, and hugged him around the waist. Harlan closed his eyes, arms hovering before settling gently around her. Grayson watched, jaw tight. Dinner was awkward, polite. Sentences stayed short. The past sat between them like an uninvited guest. Later, when Winnie was asleep, Harlan stood by the window, staring at the snow-choked street. "I never thought I'd live with my children," he said. "I thought providing was enough." Grayson joined him. "You thought distance was protection." Harlan nodded. "I see now what it cost." Maris crossed her arms. "It cost us years." "Yes," Harlan said, "and I can't buy them back." Silence. "I want to try," Harlan added. "To be present, if you'll allow it." Grayson exhaled slowly. "Presence isn't permission, it's consistency." Harlan met his gaze. "Then I'll stay." The house creaked as the wind pressed harder. Snow rattled against glass. Upstairs, Winnie slept peacefully. For the first time, 3 generations shared a roof, not healed, not whole, but willing. Outside, winter kept watch. The question came the next morning. Snow blanketed the city in a quiet white that made every sound feel too loud. Winnie sat at the kitchen table, coloring carefully around the edges of her cast. Grayson reviewed emails nearby, his attention split. "Uncle Gray," Winnie asked suddenly. "Yes, if I fail. Will you still stay?" The words landed without warning. Grayson looked up slowly. Maris froze by the sink. Even Harlan, passing through the doorway, stopped. "What do you mean?" Grayson asked gently. Winnie shrugged. "At school. If I mess up. Or if I'm not good at business stuff. Or if I get scared again." She didn't look at him when she said it. Grayson knelt beside her chair, heart pounding. He recognized the fear instantly, the same one he'd carried since childhood. "Why would you think that?" he asked. She traced a star on her cast. "People leave when things don't work." Maris closed her eyes. Grayson swallowed. "That's not how this works. But that's how before worked," Winnie said quietly. Grayson glanced at Harlan, whose face had gone pale. "I can't promise you won't fail," Grayson said carefully. "You will. Everyone does." Winnie's shoulders tensed. "But I can promise this," he continued. "I don't leave because of failure. I leave when I stop caring. And I care." She looked up, then eyes shining. "Forever, as long as I'm breathing," Grayson said. Winnie nodded, satisfied. "Okay." She went back to coloring as if the most dangerous question in the room had been settled. Harlan sat heavily at the table. "That question," he said hoarsely. "That's the one you never asked me." Grayson met his eyes. "I asked it every day, without words." Harlan looked down, and I answered, badly. Grayson placed a hand on the table. "You can answer it now, with her." Harlan nodded, tears slipping free. Outside, snow began to fall again, thicker than before. Grayson's phone buzzed. Urgent market volatility. Board requesting immediate call. He stared at the screen, then turned it face down. Maris watched him. "You don't have to." "I do," Grayson said, "but not like before." He looked at Winnie. "I'll be back before dinner." She smiled. "Okay. Don't forget." He won't, Grayson thought. He never will. As he stepped outside, The storm intensified, swallowing the street in white. Ahead waited the biggest decision of his life. Not about money, about who he would be when the storm hit hardest. The blizzard arrived like a verdict. London vanished behind white streets, erased lampposts, swallowed the sky, pressing low and heavy, as if the world itself had decided to hold its breath. Wind screamed down the row houses, rattling windows, shoving snow into every seam it could find. Inside the townhouse, warmth fought back in small, stubborn ways. The radiators hum, a kettle beginning to sing, Winnie's quiet footsteps upstairs. Grayson stood by the front window phone, vibrating in his palm. Board emergency, call now. Markets in freefall, press leaks, vote required. His inbox filled with subject lines that felt like knives. Liquidity risk partner exit confirmed London's strategy under attack. The kind of crisis he'd been born for. His entire life had trained him for this stay, calm, stay, cold, cut what bleeds. If something was failing, you removed it. If someone hesitated, you replaced them. He looked down at his reflection in the glass. A man built out of control. Behind him, the stairway creaked. Winnie appeared, bundled in pajamas and a thick sweater, her cast decorated with fresh marker stars. She rubbed sleep from her eyes and squinted at the storm. It's very angry out there, she murmured. Grayson forced a small smile. It is. She patted closer and tugged his sleeve. Are you leaving? The question wasn't dramatic. It was simply history trying to repeat itself. No, Grayson said quickly. Not leaving. Winnie studied him as if she could read the phone vibrating against his skin. Your face looks like the board game face, she said. When you're thinking too hard. Grayson crouched to her height. Go back to bed, okay? It's early. Winnie shook her head. Mom says storms make people tell the truth. He didn't answer. A gust slammed snow against the window so hard the glass shuddered. Somewhere outside, a car alarm started wailing, then died beneath the wind. Maris entered the room, hair tied up, eyes tired. The school just texted, she said. Closed. Roads are bad. They're telling people to stay inside. Harlan followed slower, leaning on the banister. He looked out at the blizzard and swallowed. This is the kind of weather that makes old men remember what they regret. Grayson's phone vibrated again. Now, Grayson. He pressed decline. Maris turned sharply. That was the board. I know. You can take the call, she said carefully. We'll be fine. Grayson stared at her. That's what I used to say. You'll be fine. It's what my father said. Harlan flinched. Grayson's voice tightened. It's what I told myself while I built a life that didn't require anyone. Winnie climbed onto the couch, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders like a cape. She looked too small against the storm. I can be brave, she offered. If you have to go. Grayson's chest ached. You shouldn't have to be brave to keep people. Silence fell. Even the kettle seemed to hush. Grayson turned the phone face down on the table as if putting a weapon away. Then it rang an actual call, not a buzz. The screen lit up, Nora exec, assistant, he answered. Nora, he said. Her voice came through strained. They're demanding you on the line. The media caught wind of the partner exits. Investors are spooked. If you don't lead this call, they'll vote you out as acting CEO before noon. Maris went still. Harlan's hand tightened on the banister. Grayson stared at the storm and felt the old reflex rise, handle it, dominate it, win. Nora continued faster now. Grayson, I need you to understand. This is the moment. If you step away right now, you could lose everything. Grayson closed his eyes and saw a different moment himself, at 8 years old, standing in a hallway with a report card in his hand, waiting for his father to turn and look at him. Harlan hadn't. Not because he didn't love him, but because love felt dangerous. Grayson opened his eyes and looked at Winnie. She wasn't demanding anything. She wasn't bargaining. She was just waiting quietly like a child who has learned that waiting is safer than hoping. He tasted something metallic in his mouth. Fear. Not of losing money, of becoming his father. Nora Grayson said slowly, "Patch the board through to my laptop. 10 minutes. Relief flooded her voice. Thank God. But Grayson added, I'm not doing it from the office, a beat. What I'm doing it from here, he said, from my kitchen table, and I'm doing it my way. Nora hesitated. They'll hate that. Let them, Grayson replied. He ended the call. Maris stared at him uncertain. What are you doing? Grayson walked to the pantry, pulled out pancake mix, set it on the counter like a declaration. I'm making breakfast, he said. Winnie's eyes widened. During a blizzard, especially during a blizzard, Grayson answered. Harlan's voice cracked. Grayson, this isn't the time for symbolism. Grayson turned to his father. It is for me. He glanced at the clock. 10 minutes. He opened his laptop at the kitchen table. The board's faces filled the screen, sharp suits, sharper expressions, the kind of people who believed warmth was weakness. One woman didn't bother with greeting. Explain your absence. We've called 3 times. Grayson kept his tone calm. I'm here. Not in the office, a man snapped. Grayson angled the camera slightly. Behind him, Winnie sat at the table, blanket cape on, quietly drawing. Maris stood near the stove, tense. Snow hammered the window like thrown stones. The kettle began to sing again. This, Grayson said, is my office today. The board erupted, voices overlapping, outrage, disbelief. You're making a mockery? This is unprofessional. You're unstable. Grayson waited until the noise thinned. Then he spoke, and the room inside the screen went silent. I've spent 25 years proving I can win, he said. I can outwork, outmaneuver, outlast. And it bought me a life so empty I could hear my own heartbeat in it. A pause. We are not collapsing because of one storm, he continued. We are collapsing because we built a company that believes humans are disposable, that leadership must be distant, that presence is optional. The faces tightened. Someone scoffed. Grayson didn't blink. My London strategy stands, he said, but not as a vanity project, as a restructuring of priorities. We keep our growth. We keep our discipline. But we stop pretending that loyalty is something you can demand without giving anything back. A man leaned toward his camera. Are you saying family is more important than shareholders? Grayson's voice lowered. I'm saying people are. And if you can't stomach that, vote me out. Maris's breath caught. Winnie looked up from her drawing, sensing the weight without understanding the words. Silence. Then one board member, older, tired-eyed, spoke quietly. What changed you? Grayson glanced at Winnie. She did, he said. The board's eyes flicked to the child in frame. And I won't sacrifice her childhood to soothe your panic, Grayson continued. If the price of keeping my position is becoming the kind of man who disappears when things get hard, then I resign. Harlan covered his mouth with shaking fingers. Maris's eyes filled. The board stared. Finally, the chair cleared his throat. You're emotional. Grayson nodded once. Yes. And then softer, I'm also right. The vote didn't come immediately. It wouldn't. But something had shifted, like ice cracking under a slow, unstoppable thaw. Grayson closed the laptop. The storm still raged. But inside the townhouse, something held. Winnie slid off her chair and hugged his side. Did you win? She asked. Grayson looked down at her, and for the first time the answer didn't live in numbers. I stayed, he said. Winnie smiled, satisfied. That's the best one. Outside, the blizzard screamed. Inside, Grayson Vale made the only decision that mattered. The storm passed the way storms always do, without asking permission. Morning light crept into the townhouse, pale and forgiving. Snow lay smooth across the street as if the night had erased itself. Grayson woke at the kitchen table, laptop closed, a blanket folded over his shoulders. He hadn't meant to sleep there. He hadn't meant to sleep at all. From upstairs came soft footsteps. Winnie appeared, hair-tangled eyes bright. She stopped when she saw him and smiled like she'd found something she was afraid might be gone. "You stayed," she said. Grayson nodded. "I told you I would." She climbed into his lap without ceremony, her cast cool against his arm. Outside, a snowplow growled past work, resuming life, moving forward. Maris joined them, holding 2 mugs. She set one down, met Grayson's eyes. No questions, just understanding. Harlan stood in the doorway longer than necessary, watching. Then he crossed the room and did something he'd never done before. He sat down. No speeches, no lessons, just presence. Grayson's phone buzzed once. A message from the board, interim approval, conditions pending. He turned it face down. For the first time, it didn't feel like a verdict. Winnie traced a finger along the window, following the path where snow had melted. "When things break," she said thoughtfully, "you don't leave. You fix what's important." Grayson smiled. Exactly. Outside, the city breathed again. Inside, something steadier took root, small, stubborn, unbreakable. Grayson looked at the people around him and understood what remained after the storm. Not control, not victory, but a promise kept. And that finally was enough. Did this story move your soul? Share your feelings in the comments and rate it from 1 to 10. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Click the end screen to watch another heartfelt video. See you in the next story.